Welcome to CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town from the world's #1 poker community. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski. Thank you so much for joining us on episode number 118 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is one of the hardest working, innovative entrepreneurs in our industry. Having first debuted in poker with the introduction of faded Spade playing cards, making inroads into dozens of the top poker rooms across the United States, this man subsequently has carved an advisory and consultancy roles with some of poker's biggest operators. Plus, he founded the Above the Felt Entertainment talent agency, helping to promote poker's brightest stars. And he's only getting started. On today's show, we're going to get to know him a little better, as well as all about a major project he's got coming up. Tom Wheaton, welcome to the CardsChat podcast.
What's up, Robbie? Anytime I hear you do an intro for anybody, I'm like, wow, he is building the character development. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words.
Well, you've earned every single one of them. You got to hype it up and get started on a high and then keep on taking it higher. So just get it out of the way before I start all my scripted questions. I'm really excited to speak with you. This is fun. I feel like this has kind of been in the works for a long time, even though we booked it just recently. But I love talking to you. I've always loved talking to you, and I'm great to have an hour or a little bit more of your time. So this is cool. Tom, you and I go back 6 years now to when we first met in Florida during the WPT World Championships. Now you're super well known in poker, but back then you were pretty green. Tell us a little bit about your corporate career prior to entering the poker world, and what it was that first made you kind of want to jump ship and take a leap becoming a poker entrepreneur.
Oh man, how long do we have for this, Robbie? So I'll keep it as brief as I can.
Okay.
So, I graduated from UCF, University of Central Florida. Go Knights, charge on. And for the next 15 years, from 22 to 37, I was a corporate employee. So went from being, a brand marketing coordinator from the start to ultimately my last corporate role was vice president of business development. And I worked in a couple different industries. I worked in the hotel and resort industry. I worked in the healthcare industry and the SaaS, software as a service industry, and just grew in the corporate year for 15 years, all within marketing and business development, from, coordinator to manager to director to vice president, managing teams across different marketing verticals, from brand to digital to web development to business development, and you name it, and content marketing, and just kind of connecting all these different departments and corporations into unified departments. At that time, that type of role was a big thing, right? All these separate marketing departments working in silos, and companies would ask me to then connect them all into one unified marketing department. But through all that,
a very conventional career, moving up the corporate ladder,
yeah,
and, adding more feathers to your cap, sounds normal.
It was very, good word, normal, yeah. Right? And during that time, though, my real passion in life was poker. And I started playing poker during the moneymaker boom, and it went from being a recreational to some underground games in Orlando, getting a little bit more serious, to playing a lot of hours at, card rooms like Daytona and Orange City, and tracking hourly rate, all cash games during that time. But that was my passion after baseball from college. And of course, the family, all about my family and et cetera. But then at that 15th year in the corporate world, I said to myself, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm living somebody else's dream. I'm working so hard for somebody else. How do I kind of take my career into my own hands? I wound up getting let go from a company where, it was a big executive position and great salary. And, with a family, that's important.
Yeah.
And when I got let go, I just had a choice where it was go back to the corporate grind and look for another corporate leadership job. But I was this is the time where I should follow a personal and professional passion I had. And I always had this idea at that time, 2017, for Faded Spade, to disrupt the poker playing card industry, to create a brand that was indicative of today's poker generation, and kind of just say, F it, let's go for it.
Right.
And it was a big risk, but we went for it. And with Faded Spade, 6 years later, I'm just like, how did this all happen? And I'm just so glad that we took the risk and it paid off. But that was the corporate career. I called myself a corporate drone. That's what I was. I did not want to be that anymore.
Well, you're an example of carpeing the diem, and thankfully it did work out. And you said you don't know how. Well, let's dive a little deeper in and figure out exactly how. I mean, for so many years prior to Faded Spade, the typical names that anyone who played poker associated with playing cards, Popeg, Kemper, of course, the classic bicycle. What made you specifically feel that you could break the mold with Faded Spade against all of these just widely established names, especially since you're just kind of starting out from scratch?
I didn't know. I just knew I loved poker. I knew I had a passion for cards from my time, as a recreational player in home games and bringing people all around town together. And at that time, there was a real problem with cards at the WSOP. Like, it was a huge topic in the poker community. And even in some WPT tournaments. And I said to myself, why is this even happening? Like, this should not be happening. And all the brands at that time were old and boring and classic. And I thought to myself, in order to start a company and actually have success, one, I felt like I had to be a need-based product. And cards are a need-based product in poker, right? You can't play poker without cards. Then I felt like I had to be a strong brand that resonated with the modern age of poker, to differentiate from the classic companies. And I felt like we did that with our design and artwork, the new face of cards, which, as you know, is WWE inspired. And the combination of creating a really high quality product that solved some of the things that were happening in the industry, plus a brand new brand, plus a need-based product, I felt like it could work if the right people in the industry, if I could make connections with the right people and companies in the industry. So we started off in e-commerce and social, and it just organically grew, and then all of a sudden, World Poker Tour, we caught the eye of them. And that partnership was developed, where if we could produce RFID cards that helped their production, they would put them on TV. It was like, okay, we can do that. We can figure that shit out.
Right.
And that's how it started. It was like the first year, God almighty, I think we did 1/20th of the revenue we did today. But it was just about getting the brand out there and establishing relationships. And with those three things, I felt like if we got it right, we could make a difference and be noticed.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously today, Faded Spade is well known throughout the poker industry. You've inked deals with dozens of poker rooms across the U.S. and arguably, your biggest deal to date is still probably with the World Poker Tour. It gets your name really out in front of the masses. I think they're in front of 725 countries or whatever it is in the world. But the way you described it, okay, so you charted the course, but how exactly does that happen? I remember I met you, at the WPT World Championships. You had to stand. Was it a matter of just getting in your car, driving from place to place, and just sort of introducing yourself? How does that progression happen? Okay, obviously, if you have a great product, people will start telling each other. But to get people to start talking about it, there has to be a catalyst. What was that?
I think the real catalyst was my relationship with the World Poker Tour.
Mm-hmm.
I became an extended part of their family. And at the time, David Gitter was their chief marketing officer. Warren Woodall was their director of partnerships. He now leads that division. And they were really fantastic in introducing me and giving me access to people around the industry that I didn't know. They really were tremendous. They help kind of give the brand credibility and make introductions. And I really believe because of that relationship, Faded Spade grew a lot faster than it would have without it. Right. So if maybe it would have taken us 10 years, 12 years to get where we are now,
right,
because of that relationship in the beginning, it's taken us 5 to 6. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
That was big. And then for me, honestly, Robbie, people just started reaching out to learn about the brand and to get to know me. And through those relationships, the brand just gained more traction, right? And I think when you produce a great product and tell the story of the brand and the product about why you're there, then it resonates with people, and it's not just a tangible or transactional kind of situation where people were purchasing our products, consumers, because they like believed in the story of the brand and what we were trying to accomplish. And that really helped on e-commerce.
Right.
And then B2B, it was like when you have the credibility of being the preferred card brand of World Poker Tour, well, now like poker rooms are actually going to take you seriously.
Right.
And then it was just, honestly, man, it was relationships. Like I knew the product was great. So now it's just how do you build relationships, and for people to see that the person that ran it and the team that we built all have a passion for poker and know the business, I think that helps get us in the door too.
You know, it's so interesting, and we already touched upon, you mentioned something WWE inspired, and I will have a related question to that a little bit later, but I can't help but, you know, kind of hear echoes of what you're saying. I've watched, you know, Vince McMahon and Triple H, Paul Levesque give interviews, you know, with the corporate suit on, of the way they talk about the storytelling and people really buying into the product, and that's why they buy the t-shirts. It's really exactly the same thing, and you know, it's pretty cool to kind of hear that, because yeah, I mean that's what I bought into it for, and I can totally see that happening. So well told, well expressed, and you know, well executed, that's for sure.
Thanks, man.
Entrepreneur that you are, once you saw success with Faded Spade, you decided to explore additional avenues within poker, eventually landing upon the idea for Faded Spade Virtual Poker, with a specific focus on online home games, as well as hosting charity events online. So how did that part of your business develop?
A blend of luck and vision. So like the pandemic hit, and it was right after I went full time with Faded Spade, like 6 months afterwards.
Right, because you were part time, right?
I was, you know, part time. I was still trying to get some fixed salary from a corporate job, but which I would recommend to anybody who's starting a business, like get some fixed salary and do both for a while. Right? There's a safety net there. But really, like Faded Spade hit, and then I was like, I'm going for this full time, and then right when I did that, the pandemic hit, of course, and like we had like 6 figures of B2B deals that were now gone. And I'm like, oh shit. Right. So basically, you know, I just started thinking like a few friends that I have are familiar with, you know, building, you know, a few friends that I have are familiar with like how to build like the right frameworks within AWS to do this sort of thing. And we found a pretty good software that could be used. And I said to myself, like, I just wanted to connect. Originally, I just wanted people to be able to connect with their friends from home and just play some fun online poker. Like that's easily, not for money, just fun, play games. Connect with your people who you can't see during the pandemic.
Right. And then that was, for those who don't know, it's Amazon Web Services.
Amazon Web Services, yes.
Sure.
So basically, that's where it started. And then I was like, I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. It's a pain in the butt. There's not really a lot of money in it. And it's just, I didn't like the model anymore because people might use it for shady things. And we got contacted by a company called Morning Brew, who you may know, and they wanted to do a charity tournament, and they didn't want to do it on another online poker site. And they're like, you know, can you manage this and facilitate this? And can you live stream it? We're going to have on a bunch of business leaders plus poker professionals. I didn't know if we could, but I said, yeah.
I love it.
And then we wound up figuring it out and doing it. And it was a huge hit. And then I said, wow, I'm like, this is a way to help nonprofits to generate revenue for their causes when they can't with any of their live events anymore, to do it through poker, which is a great story of how poker can be used to help charitable causes, to make sure these nonprofits like really earn a profit off of this. So we came up with like a really fair market rate to provide the service, and like 40, 50 foundations and charities took advantage of it over the next year. Over like $6 million of revenue was earned for these charities. And based on the service fee we charged for it, like we were able to keep the doors open, man. Like it was insane. So it was like this is cool. Like everybody wins in it. Like we provided a service that helped them earn revenue, keep their employees still, you know, give to their causes and give people something fun to do during the pandemic. And, you know, we don't really focus on that part of the business anymore, right? Because the need isn't there as much, right? A lot of the foundations and charities went back to live events, and some do hybrids, but it was just this unbelievable exercise of pivoting. Yeah. And I wouldn't be able to do it with certain people from our team, like Ryan, and Tara, like they really drove this. They really helped build the business, manage the business, and without them, it wouldn't have happened. And really, without any of my team on Faded Spade right now, and I know we'll talk about the other brands soon, none of this would have happened. Like you have to surround yourself by really good people who believe in your vision.
For sure. And you talk about pivoting, it's I like to draw the comparison to the game of poker itself. Sometimes the game just gets really tough. The opponents just improve really quickly, and you have to pivot if you want to, keep your seat at the table, keep your chip stacks. So well played. You got to do it. And after the pandemic ends, shift back and keep on adjusting and tweaking.
Well, what's crazy is like entrepreneurship is like a poker tournament. You just have to navigate ups and downs and losses and wins, and it really is. It's like a multi-table tournament. You go through so much of a roller coaster. Even the best in the world do.
For sure.
And what I really believed was, if we could survive the pandemic, then we would explode afterwards, and we did.
Awesome.
And that was very fortunate.
That's very cool. Well, I mean, obviously, on a business level, it's pretty clear at this point of, you're taking your skills and applying it, and the whole entrepreneurial takes a lot of boxes, poker. What do you love about the game of poker itself? You said, your love was poker. You played cash games. What kind of like, gets your juices flowing about the game?
Number one is the connection with people, and I found my tribe. I found my community. You know what I mean? The passion that, whether you're a recreational poker player or a professional poker player, the passion for the game is there, and that connects everybody. And I love that. I love how people are connected through passion. Competitively, I love the fact that I can study, I can get better, and I can go apply all of that at a cash game right away. Or, I've shifted to tournaments over the last, 5 years from cash, or then compete in a tournament and apply everything I've learned and studied. And it's as much like a competition against myself as it is all the other, let's say, players in a tournament. And I just love that. I love the competition. I love the camaraderie. I love all the correlations between poker and business and life. And I can't totally explain why it's like my number one passion outside of obviously my family and my businesses and et cetera. But it grabbed me back in 2003, and it's never let go of its grip.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you just had your birthday, and we're basically more or less the same age. People around our age, 40, 41, 42, when we saw the Moneymaker thing explode. We saw the World Poker Tour happening. And so many of us, they said, well, we love this game. Let's try to play it, and maybe even professionally. Why is that not the path that you took? And you took, I guess technically it's more conventional because it's, let's go through, business and more stability. But so many people said, well, you said, I love the game. I love it's all about me. And that is what a poker player does. And they just commit themselves. And clearly you do study. You understand it's something you have to apply yourself to. You can't just luck box your way to the final table. Why didn't you choose that path? Why did you go the business route to get into the game?
I think back then I wasn't the risk taker that I am now, which is odd, right? Because typically when you're younger, you're
right.
more of a risk taker. But I think like back then I was so focused on my corporate journey that that consumed me a lot more. And poker was my release. It was my release. It was what I did for fun, but also competitive. I mean, I haven't had an hourly rate. I was only playing 2.5 at the time, which is great. And to me, it was like my release. It was my fun. It was my competition. I didn't necessarily want to do it all the time because I felt like if I did, maybe I wouldn't love it as much. But honestly, I think if I'm really honest with myself, I think in my mid-20s, late 20s, I was just growing so much in the corporate world like that took precedent. And I think I was probably scared to try it. And I was probably scared to even start my own business because I had different businesses and entrepreneurship on my mind for years. I was
right.
And I think it forced me getting let go from a company to actually take the step to do it.
Wow. Well, good. Wow. That's like super honest. Like so many people would say something, but there's that extra layer beneath Good for you, man. That's not an easy thing to say. I didn't mean to push any buttons, but when that you get to that really authentic layer, it really just says something about a person. Good for you, Tom. So Faded Spade, obviously, it remains a core part of your business, but you've branched out well beyond that. I mean, I remember the first time I saw an announcement to that effect. I'm happy to announce I'm the executive marketing consultant to BetMGM. This is back a couple years ago. Were you looking to expand in that direction, or did that just sort of like land in your lap? And if so, how?
That all happened because of Above the Felt Marketing and Talent Agency.
Okay.
So obviously during the pandemic, my pandemic project was Above the Felt Marketing and Talent Agency, where I was like, why don't I have a marketing agency? Why don't I have a talent agency? Like, I did this my entire life. Like, and why don't we focus on poker? And again, I believe there was a need, a desire, that it didn't exist, that this didn't really exist for the new age poker players, right? I talk about this in the Dreamers documentary, where it really bothered me that people in the masses didn't know so many of the best and brightest poker stars of this generation, right? And I was like, I want to develop a marketing and talent agency that does a couple things that allows us to like provide value in the industry from a marketing perspective through whether it's marketing services or our talent endorsement opportunities to drive business, to increase brand, but then also like end goal, how do we expand the reach of poker outside of our industry, showcase our best and brightest to those who aren't familiar with the industry, and bring some credibility to the industry, much like, other games or sports like golf or chess or tennis or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's why Above the Felt Entertainment started. But Darren Elias, as you know, was one of the core four, one of the first people on the squad. And one of our first projects together was when we got him the BetMGM brand ambassadorship role. Through that process, working with the senior executives at BetMGM, I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea there was going to be anything in this for me. They asked if I'd like to come on board and be their, executive marketing consultant and kind of breathe life into their brand and run the whole Darren program and all these things. And I said, well, yeah. and again, the only reason I was able to do that is because I had a phenomenal team at Faded Spade. Largely Tara, honestly, Tara Smith, who you might know, who also is the president of the WPA, Women's Poker Association. She was an MVP, and the other employees we've hired since, they really helped continue to grow that brand and sustain that brand. And it allowed me to dive into the world of, marketing consulting in the industry.
Right. Very cool. I mean, you worked with BetMGM for about a year and a half. And as their executive marketing consultant, this was kind of obviously your first such role in the poker world. What would you say were some of the highlights or most important things that you learned during that time in that role?
I learned I love being a consultant, not a full-time employee for a corporation. I was still able to focus on my businesses. I was able to make great things happen there with their team, right? Like I might drive the strategy and might drive the activation plans and might set the course for where we're going to go. But it was that team when I was with BetMGM, it was that team that executed that, right? Maybe me a lot the first 3 months, but the last, 16 months or whatever it was, their team executed it. And it was cool to as a consultant, to be able to set strategy and vision and then watch it come to life. And it was cool too, because it was I got to work with Darren directly on the deal that we got him as part of Above the Felt. So it was this cool mix.
Yeah.
And I really felt like that was a huge learning experience for me in the online poker world and what works and what doesn't. And I will say I loved the BetMGM team. Nice. They were just great people. Luke, we brought on Will, that whole group. It's just a great organization. And I enjoyed my time, but I definitely learned I love being a consultant for a corporation, not a full-time employee.
Well, true to that, you are now kind of filling a similar role with WPT Global. You're their executive business consultant, and they're basically the newest global online poker room, at least as of this recording. they've achieved a heck of a lot of notoriety and name recognition in I guess it's about a year since they launched. What would you say are the biggest challenges in promoting a newer online
Yeah.
poker brand versus sort of like the legacy competition, the Poker Stars, the 888s, the Party Pokers? So that's part one. And part
Yeah.
two is, with this, same role but different company, what are your personal and professional goals within this consultancy role with them?
Yeah, great questions. So, like, to give context, it came about pretty much the same exact way the BetMGM one did, where WPT Global, as you know, is separate organization from WPT, right? So they work with a variety of above the felt talent during the World Championships to
Right.
promote their online satellites and tournaments. That's how I got to know the people there at WPT Global. Dan, Conlon, et cetera, awesome people.
Yep.
And they asked me and said, we want to have a focus on new player acquisition as, like you said, a startup essentially. And we want to do this through content and community and influencers. And they're like, you have this experience in the corporate world, in the poker world, through your entrepreneurship. They're like, would you be interested in coming and kind of leading this type of initiative? And again, it was like, yeah, sure. Like, absolutely. And it's a lot different. BetMGM was definitely, they had been around a lot longer. It's a regulated market in the States. A lot of different, like, very set corporate processes specific to like the 3 states they're in. WPT Global is like a blank canvas.
Right.
So they've done a phenomenal job with content and influencers and all these things over the last 6 to 8 months since they launched. And I think my role there now is, how do I help them get to that next level where all the great work they're doing in those areas is now matched with a new player acquisition strategy, right? So how are we focusing on different markets outside of the US, like Canada, Mexico, right, Japan, et cetera?
Sure.
And how are we working with influencers? How are we creating content for those markets? How are we creating community from those markets to where, like, they know WPT Global is the online home of the WPT, where they know it is a option just like any of the other rest of world competitors? And then how do we make sure, like, all that marketing we're doing in those 3 categories is leading to new player generation? And they are generous with their incentives. They have a phenomenal poker play experience. They are obviously, I think, one of the largest recreational pools of cash game players, right, compared to a lot of the other sites. And now they're getting a lot more into the tournament scene. So I feel like the future is really bright for them. And for me, when they asked me to do that, it kind of checked all my experience buckets.
Right.
And I said, this is a great fit. Let's go for it. Let's do it. But it's a blank canvas. It's very entrepreneurial. It is like, you can dream it up, you can try and make it happen. And they just want to win. And it's really cool. It's cool to feel a part of another entrepreneurial venture, even though it's not my business.
Right.
It's very entrepreneurial.
Sure. That's really cool. I know you've been with them, I guess, since January. So, definitely wishing you the best of luck in your continued role with them. I want to talk about Above the Felt Entertainment, of course, but I'm going to throw one curveball your way before we get there.
I played baseball, Robbie.
There you go.
Let's go. Bring it.
Oh, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that once upon a time, you too, Tom, also used to be a podcast host.
Oh, God.
There you go. I told you, curveball. You teamed up with our mutual buddy, Sean McCormick. By the way, folks, he was episode number 2 of the CardsChat podcast. So go ahead and listen to that one when you have a chance. You guys hosted the Faded Spade podcast, which focused on the entrepreneurial journeys of numerous poker players and industry personalities. I don't become a big Joe Rogan show audience-wise or anything, but you certainly lured me in as a fan back in the day. So why did you start it? What were some of the highlights, and why did you stop?
Oh, man. We were just a couple of idiots that wanted to have a podcast, man. We just, Sean was one of the first true friends I made in the industry, right? There's acquaintances and et cetera, but Sean turned into a friend, and we felt like we wanted to create a podcast that showcased the other side of poker players, which is so funny you say that, because now it, like, totally correlates to why I started Above the Felt, and I didn't make that connection to just now. But we wanted to showcase the other side of poker players that people might not know, like their entrepreneurial side, their acumen, their business sense, the stuff they do outside of just being a poker player. And I really wanted to tell that story for the players, and it was a good opportunity for Faded Spade to develop relationships as a brand, for me to develop relationships with certain people. But I just wanted those stories out there because they were never out there. And man, it was fun. Like, we learned so much about so many of the great poker players in the game and operators, and about their journeys and the correlation between business and poker and life, and like what makes so many of them tick off the felt. And I loved it, man. But like, it got to a point where I was focusing so much time on that I wasn't focusing on like the revenue driving things for Faded Spade at the time. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And look, shout out to you and others who actually do content full time. It is a grind, and I don't think I had that in me when I was really still trying to grow the businesses, and I realized I had to focus on revenue, like I said. So the production quality wasn't great at all, It's like,
you had a cool intro, outro.
Conversations. Yeah, that was fine. But we're not production people or anything. Right. So it was more, I would say, a passion project that ran its course.
Okay.
And do I love content marketing? Do I love the content game? Yes. Do I think I'm good at it? I think I'm good at a lot of other things, but not that. But it was a fun ride, and it definitely helped, relationships. And I hope for those couple thousand people that listened or watched each one, I hope at least every time one or two people got something out of it in terms of inspiration.
Well, I certainly did. I thought you'd enjoy that little mini stroll down memory lane there. I weren't expecting that one. So that was good. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to your new baby. You did touch upon a couple points here, but I'll read the question as I originally phrased it. It's been just over 2 years since you founded Above the Felt Entertainment. And essentially, you act sort of as an agent to promote some of poker's most talented professionals. Those who are, with their finger on the pulse of the industry. That's something that really only existed prior to yourselves in the form of poker royalty, which had been with basically like the A+ Mount Rushmore, Negreanu, Helmuth, and Doyle Brunson since the beginning of the poker boom. So my question is then, what is it that made you feel that the time was right to start a new agency? That's part A, that there was a talented enough additional crop of poker players ready for representation. That's part B. And part C, why you? Why are you the right guy to make that happen?
I didn't know I was the right guy. I actually speak about this in the Dreamers documentary for a very small part of it. I just felt like there's no reason for me not to have a marketing and talent agency. And I was already kind of doing this for people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So I was already kind of helping Jamie out and Matt out in terms of like their appearances or their bookings when poker rooms would contact me or other companies would contact me to like work with them for sponsorships and endorsements. I was like, oh yeah, I'll help out. I was just doing it. And I'm like, well, why the heck am I not like actually doing this? Like creating a business around it. I think it started with passion in terms of, I think I like doing it, and I think I could give a benefit to the players I work with. And yeah, there'll be some kind of like agency compensation for the deals we get for them, sure. But I'm going to put it right back into the business and grow the business. And maybe I'll use some of it for poker tournaments. But it was like, it just came to like passion of like, I feel like some of these poker players need to be more well known, and I feel like there's a market out there for them to earn business. So the vision was, I think a second poker boom is coming. That was the vision. I think a second poker boom is coming. There was already a boom kind of happening in the content marketing streets.
Yeah.
Right. And there were a bunch of rising stars there. And I just sat back and I was like, if I can get the right first four people, Jamie, Berkey, I called Darren, and then Moneymaker, I was like, that's the core. That's a great group. Boom era representation, one of the best poker tournament players in the world, obviously one of the best broadcasters in the world, one of the best high stakes poker cash game players in the world, all who have influence. And that's where it started. And within like the first 2 months, we got like our first engagement where like they hired everybody to come like endorse a tournament series and promote and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. And then like Weeks later, we got another. Weeks later, we got another. A couple weeks later, we got another. Then the big one with Darren, and it was like, oh shit, well, this is real.
Yeah.
And what I realized was it's a very personal, relationship-oriented business. I realized I don't want to be a marketing agency that has 50 people on the squad. Like, I want it to be people that I'm connected to, that there's a relationship there. It's relational, not transactional. Now, obviously, we have a team at Above the Felt. Our roster has expanded to 12, which I'm happy with. And then, like, after that core, I got to know like Ethan and Landon and Jamin. And I'm like, oh, what a great group of people. I just really like them as people. And they had talked to me about them wanting to be a part of this. And I'm like, sure, let's go. And, marketing poker players who are champions versus marketing poker players who are content creators is very different.
Yeah.
So different things appeal for different companies. And I just felt like there was something there. So literally every single month since its inception, I just figure shit out as we go. And there are opportunities that come to us. And then there are opportunities we go after. It was just me for a very long time. Now there are 4 of us. And I think the sky's the limit. And I'm so proud of what we've accomplished for everybody on the roster. I'm so proud of the relationships that have been developed. Now it's like as much benefit as we've provided in the poker community and as much benefit as we've provided to the poker players. How do we now branch this off and begin to get endorsements and sponsorships from non-poker playing companies?
Yep.
I think we're almost there. So we have employees hired to do just that and seek it out. But I'm just so proud of this company. Like I'm so glad we started it. I'm so happy with the relationships developed. I am just like to the moon with this thing. And I don't think there's a limit. Like, I really think like this can be the predominant poker marketing agency. And who knows where else it evolves, over the course of the next few years. And shout out to Ballsba and James, who started Poker Royalty during the boom, because what an opportunity to capitalize on. And he did it. And that's impressive. And now it's like how I like being the person for like the new generation. Right. And working with everybody from, maybe their start to see where they're going and having impact in that. It just comes down to making a difference, in many cases being a mentor, and that just gives me purpose in doing it. And I fucking love it.
I love it. That's wonderful. I mean, well, I'm going to dive like pretty deep on that, but there's that extra WWE connection. I remember when you first started out, you announced your core 4: Moneymaker, Darren Elias, Jamie Kerstead, and Matt Berkey. And I joked with you, you're like the Bobby the Brain Heenan of poker with your own stable, right? So you have Tommy the Brain Wheaton, basically.
Oh God!
So my question again, we'll dive deep, but again, like if you know WTV, if you're a longtime fan, you'll really understand the reference, and it's legit, and one of the best in the biz, that's for sure. So Tom, what do you see as your primary role vis-a-vis the talent? And I'll just put it very bluntly: why do they need you, and why do they need Above the Felt Entertainment?
Yeah, I think I'm part advisor, part agent, part promoter, part business developer. And what we've all learned through this process is many of the players don't know how to approach any of these business deals. And what we've all learned is when I'm working on their behalf, we get their true value from our clients, and our clients earn the true value from the player, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. So obviously, when there is an opportunity that we seek out or a client seeks out, maybe it's for a couple players, one player, the group, I'm able to have these business conversations with the client that really help them understand the market value of the player involved, of the content they want to endorse, or the appearance, or the marketing campaign. And then I'm able to help the player understand what the actual obligations and deliverables should be in relation to that deal value. And there's this nice two-way street where it's like, I'm looking out for our clients,
right,
to make sure that like they are getting the best value for their spend. And then I'm looking out for the players to make sure that the obligations match the spend. And then what happens is during that process, after a deal is done, it was me for a long time. Now it's going to be a few employees. we're the go-between as well between the client and the talent. So the talent isn't having to worry about all the details working with the client. The client isn't having to worry about all the details working with the talent. We set everything up for everybody and make sure things get done, make sure assets are received, make sure the messaging is accurate. And it's like, that's a service. So it's like a couple things. One, it's obviously business development and finding the deals, getting the deals done. And the other one is like the account management of it after the deal is done, right? And what we've all realized is, and I'm proud of this, the client is going to pay fair market value, and the talent or the player is going to get fair market value. No one is going to be taken advantage of.
Right.
Everyone's going to feel it's a good deal, and the talent is going to get more. This has happened every single time than they expect, right? Or that they would have gotten their own. And the client is getting more obligations and deliverables than they would have expected. So like everybody wins in this situation. And ultimately, if the operator or client wins and the player and the talent wins, then guess who wins? The poker community, the poker fans, the players who engage in the product or service or follow the talent. And that's what I love about it. Every single deal we do, like everyone is coming off better than they were beforehand. And it's adding value to everybody. And if there's a deal that isn't going to add value to the client, then I'll tell the player and I'll tell the client, like, I don't think this is going to add value. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't work with us for this.
Right.
And then for the player too, if it's like, hey, I don't know if this is the right fit for you, even if it's a good compensation, then we have that conversation, because unless it's a win for everybody, then I don't want to do the deal. And because that relationship is really important, because the relationship doesn't stop after a deal is done.
Right.
It now continues and evolves.
Well, folks, I mean, everyone, every member of the CardsChat community has been marketed to. So you know what marketing speak sounds like, but Tom's not reading off a card. I've known him for 6 years, and you can hear, in the 45 minutes or so that we've been listening already, this is an authentic man, and the way you speak about it with such passion. And plus, we've seen these deals in action. The folks on your roster above the Felt Entertainment, and we love it. Whether we're attending the events or watching it on our screens, on the live streams, or on TV broadcasts and stuff. We see it, and clearly value is being delivered as far as like entertainment to us. So the whole win-win-win philosophy, it's true. So it's pretty cool to hear you kind of explain it. I'm going to go off script just briefly, because as you've described a couple of things, I've just had a personally curious question. And I think this is something that a lot of folks could possibly get insight into. We talked so much about the whole entrepreneurial streak that you have. I know I have it myself. And I kind of discovered it late in life a little bit. But something where I feel you've truly excelled and impresses the hell out of me is, you've mentioned a couple of times. So you had Faded Spade, and then, you hired people who could go ahead and do the job so that you could do other things above the Felt Entertainment. Now you're hiring other people who could do this sort of thing so you could, grow it further. This whole scaling of a business, that's, the textbook of what you're supposed to do. I know that's something that I find very difficult. And, the way you speak about all of your projects, it's your baby, you're very passionate about it. How do you, let go of that, I need to be involved in everything, and B, how do you find the right people who you could trust to do as good and possibly even a better job than you would have done yourself in these poker businesses?
So it's a hard question to answer, because I'm not sure that I've done it as well as I could have leading in the past, or I'm doing it as well now. And what I mean by that is, my decisions to bring on more people isn't always an intellectual business decision. When I start feeling like I am not as tuned into my family or involved with my family, or if my businesses start like diving into the time I should be spending with my family, that's when I say, I need more people. Because that is something that I am not going to sacrifice. So like, I am not going to sacrifice my time with my family. I'm not going to not be there when the kids get off the bus. I'm not going to not be going to the games or the cheerleading competitions or the dinners, or whether it's extended family, whatever. So like, I wish I could tell you it is a pure business decision that when business gets too much and the budget makes sense, I hire resources. That's not where it starts for me. which is probably not the right place from a business standpoint, but it all starts with what I said about the family stuff. So then what I say to myself is, okay, do I know anybody that I think could do this job from a person standpoint? Then I look at the experience. And a good example of this was, meeting Tara Smith a few years ago, who was becoming MVP for Faded Spade, right? And a few other, and obviously Ryan during the virtual poker time. And you don't know if they're going to work out, but you get a feeling. And Tara is a great example of I had a feeling, and she's exceeded all expectations. And she's part of the Faded Spade family, as are a couple other employees, but she drives it, right? So I want to give her some credit. And then with Above the Felt, like, it got to a point where it was taking up so much of my time that I was like, realized like, oh crap, this is getting into my family time. Wow. And the consulting, obviously. And I was like, well, something's got to give. So I'm forced to now hire people for Above the Felt because I can't do it all.
Right.
And same type of thing. Like, I remember the two recent jobs, over 300 applicants. And I picked two who I really feel like are going to be great. And shout out to Katie and Keith. And I think they are going to be great. But that's where it all starts for me, Robbie. Like, it's when I feel balance getting screwed up because of the consulting and the Faded Spade business and the Above the Felt business. When I feel that balance getting screwed up with my family, that's when I'm like, oh shit, I need to do something here. And that's the driver. And then I figure it out from a financial standpoint, and I trust that the employees I bring in are going to be good returns on investment. And so far they all have been, knock on wood.
Right.
But they all, what's important to me is that they all feel part of the family. Faded Spade, Above the Felt, like, these are family owned businesses. Even if they look and feel sometimes like much bigger businesses. And yeah, we are from a revenue standpoint. The culture is, this is a family business, and the people I bring on, I'm going to treat like family. I'm going to respect like family. And hopefully that keeps them, passionate about the mission and great employees.
Well, I'm happy I asked that question because, folks out there, whether what you do is poker related or not, there's so much you can learn from that answer. So good on you. And I'll skip one question. I'll get back to it because it just ties into the whole family thing. I was going to say, Tom, 6 years into your career in the poker world, you're flying high, and you said the sky really seems to be the limit. And you're a family man. You're married +2. And I know what it's like to be, also a poker industry entrepreneur, and specifically that challenge of simultaneously being all in with your business ventures, but also being a devoted dad and a husband. So what sort of balance do you try to strike on that daily, weekly, monthly basis? What are your KPIs as far as, dadding and husbanding?
And like, just totally real, like, two things suffer: my poker playing and my friendships. They do. Like, I don't make the time I should for my friends, and I don't play poker nearly as much as I want because something has to give.
Right.
So, that's what gives right now. And anybody that tells you it's always an equal balance of businesses and family every single week, like, they're full of shit. That's not true. Like, there are going to be weeks where I am like freaking on it with the family, like, and it's like we're having a good time, we're vacationing, we're doing, and then there are weeks where I'm like, oh man, I got to focus on business, and I might work 10 more hours that I want to, right? But it's that constant, I think, intentional decision to strike balance and be aware of the balance, and be aware, to me, like, any given day or any given week, when you're like, ooh, I got to put more towards my family this week. I got to put a little bit more towards the business today. And like, that's what I think helps you find balance, is that intentional strive to get there. But with me, like, I talked about family business, like, my wife is involved. She, as the business has grown, she's crushing it as like a creative director, graphic designer, e-commerce. And she had her own business with her graphic design clients, and she's now choosing to do this, right? And my kids are coming up with ideas for new products, and like, everyone just feels a part of it. So, but hopefully that answered your question. But I think it's just the intentional decision to make sure there is balance and be aware of it.
Very cool. God, I love talking to you. This is so cool.
I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have it figured out, bro. Like I don't have this shit figured out, man. I'm still figuring this shit out as I go, really.
It resonates real hard. Just a couple more questions from me before we get into the Cards Chat community questions. We'll list them because you mentioned a dozen. Jamin Burton, Ethan Yao, Rampage, Jeremy Osmus, Jeff Platt, Landon Tice, Maria Konnikova, Sam Abernathy, and the Next Gen Poker guys. That is a who's who of the top poker personalities in addition to your core four. One heck of a stable. At this point, now that you're well known, Tom, you're not, who's Tom Wheaton? What's above the thumb?
I wouldn't say I'm well known, but thank you. I do not think I'm well known.
Within the poker world, I would say people are familiar with your work. It speaks for itself. At this point, you kind of have your pick of who you would want to join your stable. Are you the one sort of actively recruiting new talent, or are poker pros kind of like banging down your door? And either way, what sort of synergies are you looking for before you come to an agreement with anyone to join the above the felt stable?
It's a good question. It's a balance of both. And really that question is what led into the Dreamers New Age Poker documentary and that whole project, which I know is not the question now. So
that's the last question. So.
I'll hold on there. To me, it is extremely important that the people I bring on to Above the Felt have, in some way, already established a very positive, genuine, authentic brand for themselves in the industry, even if it's in its infancy. It's very important to me that if they seek me out, or I have an idea, or they're introduced to me by somebody else, that like our first few conversations, that there is genuine, authentic connection. Because I want to be doing this for people that I'm connected to, like really connected. Because to me, it's not just the business side of it, it's also making a difference, right? In their life or family life or et cetera. So it comes down to connection. It comes down to like their brand within the industry. Like, everybody on this roster, I think, would say are all genuine, authentic, records are spotless people that genuinely love the game and want to help grow the industry. And that's the foundation of who they are. Never mind world champions, best in class broadcasters, industry leading content creators, all this stuff. Like that's what it comes down to. So really that connection is what's important. I've maybe seeked out 25, 33% of the roster. 25, 33% have been referred by the roster, and the other third maybe have come to me and I've been open and got to know them. I am going to bring on 1/2 more people over the next 6 months. That's going to be announced next week or the week after.
Nice.
I feel it is the absolute perfect next person and people on the roster. And then I'm going to be slowing down for a little bit because I've got the new employees who were generating processes for business development, for project management. If I bring anybody else on after that for a little bit of time, I'm not doing right by the current roster in terms of our business helping find opportunities. And then we'll expand again in the future, possibly. But to me, there aren't like these grand expansion plans. It's not like Faded Spade where we've got, hey, here's our Q3, Q4 plan. Let's go. Like this is more like, well, if somebody I meet like fits the culture and I think I can do something for them, or the company can do something for them, and it seems like it'd be a win-win and it wouldn't be a detriment to the current roster, then I'll consider it. Absolutely. So I hope that answers your question, but it's there's not like a strategic plan for it, man. It's just like, we'll take it as it comes.
It's really amazing. I'm going to reflect mid-conversation here of like, anyone who has paid attention and seen the whole growth and everything, again, perhaps you don't necessarily have this, grand business plan for growth, but you keep on saying, figuring it out as you go. There's so much, potential power to be unleashed through that and through not being afraid and taking chances. And I'm sure you've had some bumps along the way, but folks, if you're learning and taking anything from this conversation, it's, get out of your comfort zone, at least from time to time, because even if you fail once in a while, some pretty darn amazing things could come from it. So power to you, Tom. And it's pretty cool.
The more you fail, the harder you fail, the closer you are to success. And I think a lot of people give up too soon.
Nice.
But God, Robbie, I could have a 10-hour podcast about all the failures I've had across all these businesses and corporations and personally. It's just, can't let it stop you, man. If you have a vision for your life or you have a vision for a business, then you just relentlessly go after that vision, and it doesn't matter how many times you fail.
Yeah. I'll do one more question from me, because we mentioned it at the intro. We mentioned it a few times throughout. Dreamers. This is a new project in the pipeline, a very special documentary set to be released in the very near future. Tell us, how did this project come to be? Why did you decide to embark on it? And what is exciting you beyond, okay, we've been working on it. What is most exciting to you about this release of bringing the documentary to the poker world?
I'm so damn proud of this. It doesn't matter to me if 30 people watch it, 300, 3,000, 30,000, 300,000. I don't care. I'm so damn proud of this project. Dreamers New Age Poker Documentary, produced by Above the Felt Entertainment. Originally, Robbie, I had just hired a videographer, Carl Angelo, shout out to Carl, to kind of shadow some of the team during the WPT World Championship Festival. And we were going to create a couple like little 10, 12-minute vlogs about the team's run in the tournaments and talk about our agency. And it was going to be like half promotional, half like vlog oriented, cool stuff, right?
So this has come together in 4 months, this entire project.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And it is not that anymore. It is not that. So what happened was, that's like what I was just thinking. What happened was an underlying story through all the player interviews emerged, and the poker story emerged. So let's talk about the poker story first. So during the World Championship, it turned into this really like interesting story about resilience and failure in the main event with the team. Where it wasn't like about the team. It was like about like how we dealt with the success and failure so quickly, near each other in that tournament. And then what happened is Jamie went on this run, one of the probably foremost passionate and proactive women advocators in poker, people in our industry. She went on a run in the first ever ladies championship and final tabled the thing.
Yep.
That's a cool story. And then out of nowhere, Ethan, one of the most up and coming poker content creators, one of the most popular poker content creators, who has told his journey from 1-3 cash to now, makes an improbable run in the high roller tournament. And it was like, wow, here's like this story that unfolded with the squad that we didn't expect. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So based on that, and then all the interviews we did with the players, so many themes came out about overcoming adversity, about the perception of poker versus the casino industry, about what it means to be an influencer, about how they have navigated their careers. And I went, holy shit. I got back in January and I was like, I reviewed all the content and I just said, oh God, we have a documentary and now I have to do it. It was like, that's what it was. And I was paralyzed for a few weeks, not knowing what to do.
Wow.
And then I just said, we have a documentary, holy shit. And I had to find the right person to partner with me on post-production. And I found that in Alec Room, who is super talented young man.
Yes, he is.
Who I've worked with both brands for the last couple of years. And he just gets me, and he got the vision and he got the story, not just the poker story, but the underlying story. Mm-hmm. And he has really come through for this. And now we have this documentary that I hope people in the industry can relate to. I hope it opens up their eyes and maybe they learn something about some of the players they might know or look up to. I hope it shows that like everyone's kind of going through the same thing, no matter if you're a recreational or a professional. And it's going to be entertaining, I think, because of the poker story. But that underlying foundational story is so important to me. And I hope that people outside the industry who eventually see this, because it's not going to be just on YouTube on April 14th at 7 p.m. It's going to be across a bunch of other VOD platforms in about 3 months.
Ooh, exciting.
So yeah, so it's like, I hope people that watch us out of the industry, I hope they watch it, and I hope their reaction is, holy shit, I never knew. I never knew that these types of talented people are part of the poker industry. I never knew that poker wasn't like gambling. I never knew that this game, this sport, whatever, is as intellectual and strategic, and you have to have like sustainability and longevity. And I want people to say, I never knew poker was like this. And I hope, like, if those two things are achieved, then I feel like this is a real great success.
Wow. Well, I already wanted to watch it. Now I really want to watch it.
Well, it's funny because, like, I work really hard, and so did Alec, to make sure it's not like promotional for Above the Felt. Like, it's about 88 minutes and it tells the story. And maybe 4 or 5 minutes is like a little bit kind of promotional for Above the Felt, because you learn about the players, what brought us together. It's all within what I would say a influence segment.
That's fair.
But like, I think what this can do is also, like, if the right people watch it out of the industry and they have the right jobs in the corporate world.
Yeah.
If they weren't considering working within the poker industry for their endorsements and sponsorship and marketing dollars, my hope is they watch this and they say, why haven't I considered this? I should consider this. I should not lump this into casino gambling. And I should consider working with Above the Felt and the players on Above the Felt or other organizations in the poker industry. I feel like that can happen too. So I don't know, man. I'm just so damn proud of this. It doesn't matter to me if it's 30, 300, 3,000, 30,000. Like, I love it. And I think people will enjoy it too.
Well, you definitely have an eager fan in me and the 300,000+ strong CardsChat community army. I'm sure.
Let's go, CardsChat. Show up to YouTube on April 14th, 7 p.m. Above the Felt YouTube. There you go. There's my little promotion.
There you go. At 7 p.m. Eastern for those of us
Eastern,
not on
4 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, they could check out the trailer and everything on the YouTube channel now.
Exactly. Well, that's exhausted my questions, but this is now the segment of the show where we turn to you guys, our CardsChat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread on the CardsChat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. There's a lot of new names I haven't seen before, so I'm really excited. Thank you all for participating here. Tadi is the first question asker here. Wants to know, Tom, what criteria does a poker player need to meet for your agency to work with them?
Good question. I don't have one. I don't have a criteria. There's no criteria. If you look across the whole roster, like, there are world champions, there are recreational content creators, there are broadcasters, there are best-selling authors like Maria Konnikova, and it's one of those things where I don't have a set criteria. Like, I just don't. Like, and who knows what this agency turns into? We might have the 12, and the next 2 we're going to announce as, like, the core. Now it's the core compared to when it was the 4. But who knows? Like, maybe one day there's a rising star division. Maybe one day there's something, like, I don't know. So I very much appreciate the question. I wish I could tell you there was specific criteria. But I think it goes back to my answer earlier about connection and those types of things.
That's fair. Zoro222, thanks for submitting this one. Tom, which do you consider more challenging? Running a company like Faded Spade or being a professional poker player?
I am not a professional poker player. I am very much a part-time recreational player, as Darren likes to make fun of me. He calls me a part-time rec, who's studied and knows what he's doing. I definitely have an advantage in big fields the first day or 2, but after that, I can't say I have an advantage. Like, if I play in a 6 max tournament, I do not have an advantage. So very clearly, I'm not a professional. But I'll put it this way. I am much more comfortable in an executive boardroom trying to close a high 6-figure business deal than I am on day 3 of a poker tournament. So, that's Whereas like Darren, Darren and I joke about this. Darren, like day 4 of a poker tournament, he's like, well, just another day at the office.
Right.
Put him in that situation, the exec boardroom. He's like, oh shit, what, So I will say like, it's much easier for me to, I feel like, run the business than it is to navigate a poker tournament.
Well illustrated. All right. Chica Bonita, one of our frequent question askers. Thanks for getting these in. Tom, when did you realize that not only did you want to devote your life to poker and the poker industry, but that you could really do it? Was there an aha moment? Please tell us about the most vivid impression that became that sort of trigger mechanism for you.
5 years before I started Faded Spade, 2012, I was on a business trip in Las Vegas, staying at the Aria. I woke up in the middle of the night with the idea for Faded Spade. I bought the URLs at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my God.
I mapped out a bullet point list of what I wanted it to be.
Oh my God.
And I said, one day I'm going to do this.
Wow.
5 years later, I did it.
Wow.
I won't go into more details because it was
4
4 a.m. in a hotel room, but hopefully that's vivid enough. But I just woke up. It just hit me. Like I was thinking about this for a long time. It just hit me. And
good for you.
That's what it was. That's when I knew.
Very cool. Next one from Chico Benito. What moral and ethical principles do you adhere to when playing poker and doing business? Are they different, or are the principles that are important to you in poker also important to you in business?
Poker business life, integrity, and carrying myself with integrity, and bringing on people to above the felt that have that same integrity, and the friends I associate with, the colleagues I associate myself with. Like that's like the number one thing I look for.
Cool. Okay.
I have lost business deals. I have lost friendships. I have lost careers because of my choice of making a decision of integrity versus not. And that is the number one thing I hope I instill in my kids, actually. There are going to be times where your integrity is questioned. It's going to be times where your integrity is challenged, and there's always a trade-off. And I feel really good that I can look back on my career and say, like, anytime that happened, I rose up and chose integrity. So like that makes me feel really good.
Very cool. I can't help but ask, says Chico Bonita, how do you feel about women's poker? Do you participate in any programs to attract women to poker? And if so, which ones?
It's almost like this is a predetermined question, right? But it's not. So, and you're going to get this in an answer.
Okay.
In the Dreamers documentary, we have an entire section on women in poker.
No kidding. Okay.
You hear from Maria Konnikova about it. You hear from Jamie about it. You hear from Moneymaker about it.
Huh.
It's around the same story arc of Jamie's Ladies Championship final table. It was very important for me to put in there. Tara, who is my number one at Faded Spade, is the president of the WPA. We support them a lot. In fact, there is a promotion we're launching tomorrow in relation to Dreamers, which everyone will see. It's called the Poker Dreamer Promotion, and we are awarding one seat to the Ladies Championship and one seat to the Prime Championship.
Nice.
So for me, the whole women in poker movement thing, it's not like a movement. It's just we got to make it more comfortable. And right. You'll hear about this in the Dreamers documentary. It was very important to me that part of that story focused on that. And I think you're going to hear some really great sound bites from folks on the Above the Felt roster about that in the documentary. Nice. Very cool. Folks, guys, we get to watch this for free. We don't have to pay to watch Dreamers. It's so cool. I love it. This is an investment. This is an investment for the company, for maybe even the industry if it works out right. Like I feel like this is just an investment for poker. Right. Red Boy 23. We got 3 more question askers. We'll get through as many as we can. Red Boy 23 wants to ask, I like this one. Any advice, Tom, for aspiring poker entrepreneurs? Yes. Don't feel like you have to have your entire plan baked out before you start your journey. And you might not know what direction or first step you need to take towards your entrepreneurial vision, but just start making small decisions towards it, baby steps towards it. If you try and plan and have this perfect business plan, it could take you 2 years to get that. You never get going. So just start doing things that align with your vision now, and then figure it out as you go. And there is a balance of planning and execution that all successful entrepreneurs at some point achieve. And I would say, just start making decisions and start taking action towards the vision. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. It will turn into walking. It will turn into running. It will turn into jumping. It will turn into leaping towards your vision. And I think that's what I would do.
That's some rock solid advice there. That's for sure. Red Boy 23 also wants to know, Tom, you seem to be doing, I guess they looked at your hand and mob. You seem to be doing well enough in the game of poker, but making a WPT final table appears to be elusive. What are you working on to change that in the future?
Sorry, Robbie, I had to cough for a minute.
Oh, good.
So apologize about that. I love this question. My volume is very low. Mm-hmm. I might play 6 to 8 to 10 poker tournaments a year. That said, every year since 2017, since I transitioned to poker tournaments and I took that risk in the 10K Bobby Baldwin Classic and ran deep and cashed, ever since that year, I have run deep and cashed in a World Poker Tour tournament or another tournament.
Nice.
Maybe I play, like I said, maybe I play 6, 7, 8. But every year there's been one that I've run really deep in and a couple cashes. The damn final table has eluded me every single year for the last 5, 6 years since I got into tournament poker. At the Borgata last year, damn it, $180,000 up top, get it in a great spot to make the 8-person final table, and I bust 10th. I can't get to that damn final table. So to answer your question, it's coming. I don't know when, but I'm studying. I got great people around me. Casual advice from Darren Elias, one of the best poker tournament players in the world. Subscription to Solve for Why Poker Training to watch all their great content and learn. That's what I do. But make no mistake about it. It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. And who knows? Maybe it'll be this year.
We'll wrap it up with 3 questions. JMFC, a name I haven't seen before. Thank you so much for submitting these. This might make you laugh, Tom. I heard that faded spade cards were great for poker, but how are they for slicing carrots at 10 feet?
They are the best in the damn business for slicing carrots at 10 feet. How's that? You will not find a better card on the market that slices carrots when thrown at 10 feet. There you go.
Shout out Chris Ferguson for those in the know. I want more from JMFC. What would you like for the poker community to understand most about you?
Oh God, Robbie. Oh man. Well, I guess that's not your question. That's the community question.
We got one last one afterward.
What do I want the poker community to understand about me? Just that I consider myself like anybody else in this industry. We're all connected through the poker dream. We're all connected through a passion for poker. My goal, if I can look back let's say I'm 60, right? I'm 43 now. When I'm 60, if I can look back on my career portion of my life that has now transitioned to the poker industry, if I can look back and say, you know what? I helped grow that industry. I helped make poker. I helped people achieve their poker dreams. I helped players receive the notoriety that they deserve. If I can just look back and say I helped leave a mark on this community, in this industry, in any type of positive way, then I will look at that as a great career. That's what I would say. That's what I hope I can accomplish through any type of involvement I have with any of my businesses in the industry. Just, did I make a positive difference in the industry? And if so, then it was well worth the time spent on it.
Awesome. Great answer. And throughout this entire conversation, you've been dropping great nuggets of knowledge and advice to people. Our last question comes from KLT Womi. Again, a new name I haven't seen before. Thank you so much for submitting it. Wants to know, Tom, what was the best poker advice you've ever received? And obviously not just in the game from someone like Darren Elias, but throughout the industry or something like that. Best poker advice you've ever received. Can you share that with us?
Man, good question.
We'll give you the time bank on this one. And
go ahead. Put me on the clock, man.
It's all good. Go ahead. Okay. I had a whole the time bank.
The best advice wasn't like a strategy advice.
Okay.
The best advice was up here mentally, mindset. I'm not going to say who told me this, but they said, you need to start approaching poker and poker tournaments the same way you approach business. And you need to just stop being so emotional, to basically continue to be aggressive, but have some strategic aggression. You don't have to just be aggressive all the time. And during any type of poker tournament, the roller coaster, just like entrepreneurship, you need to stay as even keel with your eye on the prize, just like you do in business. And to me, that was very eye-opening for me because I did not realize that I was approaching poker so differently than I approach business from a mindset perspective, and that I was a little too aggressive in the wrong spots and a little too emotional based on the outcome of any given hand, up or down. So,
shout out to Phil Hellmuth for that even keel.
No, it was not him. Trust me.
I'm just kidding. And Phil, we love you. We love you.
And shout out to Phil. Yes, Phil has. I've got to know Phil, and he's great.
He's the man. He was actually episode 4 of the CardsChat podcast. Folks, thank you all for sending in questions for Tom Wheaton. And again, a friendly reminder to all of you out there in the CardsChat community, we would love for you to submit your questions to our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Guys, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you'd like the show. Tom, before we go, anything else you'd like to share with the CardsChat community?
Just thank you for the great questions. It made me reflect and think on some things. And I hope that you all show up on April 14th on the Above the Felt YouTube. We're doing the watch party. It's the premiere, right? At 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And a lot of the folks from Above the Felt will be in chat. And I hope you join us and share in the story, not just the poker story that happens during the documentary, but the underlying story about our community and about our industry. I hope you guys join us, and I hope you get something out of it.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Tom Wheaton. Thank you all for tuning in once again to another episode of the CardsChat podcast. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day. CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town from the world's #1 poker community.